The girl asked, "Mom, who is this old man?" The mother replied, "He is the king who rules over us." The girl then asked, "Is he Hechchamanayaka, the one they talk about?" The little girl said this in a sweet manner. Upon hearing this, Hechchamanayaka went to the girl and said, "Do you know who he is? He is the king of this prosperous empire. His name is Veera Balaldeva. Hechchamanayaka is just a general under King Balaldeva. Hechchamanayaka is not a king. He will never be." He said this to scare the child a bit. Seeing the child's face, which started to show signs of fear again, King Balaldeva called out, "Hechchana, why do you frighten such a little child about who the king is and who the general is? Leave her alone." He then told the girl's mother to take her inside. The girl was taken inside by her mother, still sobbing. King and Hechchamanayaka resumed walking. Noticing Hechchamanayaka's discomfort, the king said, "See, Hechchana, many people like you even without knowing who you are. Do you know why? Since you became a general, the borders of our empire have been restored. Whenever there is a problem in the kingdom, you face it. Times are changing. Hechchana, how long will people bear with this old king? They are looking for change. If you agree." Before he could finish, Hechchamanayaka, though visibly annoyed, controlled his irritation and said, "King, I have told you many times already. I have no desire to rule the kingdom, I only wish to protect it. Yet, why do you keep saying this to me?" The king said, "I don't see anyone more capable than you to rule this kingdom after me. The people will also fully support you. Think it over once more." Hechchamanayaka replied, "No matter how many times you ask, my answer will not change, king. I will accept whoever you appoint as your successor, but I cannot accept myself as your heir." Since Hechchamanayaka was unwilling to be the heir to the Hoysala Empire, the king thought to himself, "If he doesn't want to be my successor, does that mean this kingdom will end with me? Who will rule this great empire after me?" The king, deep in thought, entered the royal palace. A few days later, Balaldeva received a letter from Muhammad bin Tughlaq. The letter demanded that Balaldeva acknowledge Tughlaq's supremacy over South India and pay tribute, or prepare for war. Upon hearing this, Balaldeva thought, "Now I understand why everyone calls this Ulugh Khan a mad king." He immediately summoned a scribe and dictated a response, "The Hoysala Empire is a sovereign kingdom. It will never bow to anyone. If anyone dares to challenge our independence, we will answer with our swords on the battlefield." Balaldeva sent this defiant letter to Tughlaq. As soon as Tughlaq received Balaldeva's response, he was furious. "So, the Hoysala king has grown bold enough to defy me? He must be crushed. I have been too preoccupied with politics to wage war against him, but now it's time to teach him a lesson. Prepare to march against the Hoysala kingdom and ensure that it falls under my control this time. Spare no effort." Tughlaq ordered the rulers of Kampili, a Thuruska-ruled state, to lead the campaign, promising additional troops if necessary. A messenger took Tughlaq's orders and rode swiftly from Delhi to Kampili. After the messenger had left, a military officer stood up and asked Tughlaq, "Your Majesty, why did you order the Kampili rulers to attack the Hoysala kingdom?" Tughlaq replied, "The rulers of Kampili are from South India, so by sending their own against them, I ensure they weaken themselves in the process. Once they are exhausted from fighting each other, it will be easy for me to conquer them." The officer, however, voiced another concern, "Your Majesty, it's fine if they weaken each other, but what if they unite and grow stronger instead?" Tughlaq, who was already anxious about this possibility, did not want to show his concern. He thought to himself, "If I revoke my orders now, people might think I'm a fool." So, he feigned confidence and replied, "That won't happen. The rulers of Kampili have been loyal to me all these years. Why would they betray me now? They won't." But in truth, Tughlaq wasn't entirely confident. His doubts were soon realized. When the rulers of Kampili received Tughlaq's orders, the two Turuska leaders there gathered their forces and set up camp at Anegundi, a town on the northern bank of the Tungabhadra river, close to Hampi. Hechchamanayaka, having learned of this, alerted his own forces and prepared for battle. He then went to the king and said, "King, Ulugh Khan seems to have sent a small contingent to attack our kingdom. They are now camped at Anegundi on the opposite bank of the Tungabhadra river. If you permit, I will cross the river and finish them off there." The king calmly replied, "There is no need for us to cross the river. However, if they attempt to come to this side, do not spare them. Only attack if they make the first move against us. Until then, do nothing." Though Hechchamanayaka, who preferred attacking the enemy head-on, was eager to engage, he readied himself to wait, as per the king's orders, until the enemy made the first move. Even after waiting for several days, there were no signs of an attack from Anegundi. After about a week, a man arrived from Anegundi with a letter, requesting an audience with Ballal Deva. Hechchamanayaka escorted him to the king. The man read out the letter from the Turuska leaders camped at Anegundi, stating that they wished to visit Vidyaranya Swami, a renowned spiritual guru in the Hoysala kingdom. The letter sought the king's permission for this visit. Hearing this, the king was puzzled as to why followers of Islam would want to meet Vidyaranya Swami. Hechchamanayaka expressed his suspicion, saying, "King, this seems like a ploy to gather intelligence on the strengths and weaknesses of our Hampi city. It would be wise not to grant their request." The messenger from Anegundi responded, "You need not worry. Our two commanders will come unarmed, and they will go wherever you direct them. All we ask is that you allow them to meet the Swami." After thinking for a moment, the king said, "All right. I will arrange for Vidyaranya Swami to meet them in Hampi city within 2 days. However, if they make even the slightest mistake, I cannot guarantee their safety. We will not compromise on security. Make sure they take all necessary precautions," and with that, he sent the man from Anegundi away. Neither the king nor Hechchamanayaka could understand why the Turuska commanders wanted to meet Vidyaranya Swami. Balaldeva went alone to meet Vidyaranya Swami and explained the Turuska leader's request, asking the Swami to come to Hampi city to fulfill their wish. Vidyaranya Swami replied, "Balaldeva, as you have expected, the time for significant changes in your kingdom is near. I have some tasks to accomplish as well, so I will definitely come to Hampi city. And then he resumed his meditation. With that assurance, Balaldeva bowed at his feet and returned to Hampi city. 2 days later, the two Thuruska commanders from Anegondi arrived at the eastern gate of Hampi city, unarmed. Hechchamanayaka personally inspected them again to ensure they were indeed without weapons before escorting them into Hampi city. He then led them to a small temple just outside the city, where Vidyaranya Swami was staying. Balaldeva had already arrived there by the time they reached the temple. As soon as the Thuruska commanders saw Vidyaranya Swami meditating, they bowed at his feet. Vidyaranya Swami slowly opened his eyes, smiled, and said, "Hakka and Buka, you have finally come to see me after all these years." Hearing these words, not only the Thuruska commanders but also Hechchamanayaka and Balaldeva were astonished. "Swami, you have never met us before, yet you recognize us and even know our real names." "We are amazed," said Hakka. "When our uncle, Ballappa, spoke of your greatness, we longed to meet you at least once in our lifetime. However, our duties in Orugal kept us occupied, and our wish remained unfulfilled. Later, when Prataparudra lost the war, we were captured along with him by Muhammad bin Tughlaq and taken to Delhi. On the way, when Prataparudra sacrificed his life by jumping into the Narmada river, we didn't know what to do. Tughlaq forcibly converted us to Islam and enlisted us in his army, making us believe that we would never get the chance to see you. But we never expected that fate would fulfill our wish in this way." Hakka explained their story. Hechchamanayaka asked Hakka, "So, you are related to Ballappa Naika, who served as a commander in our army?" Hakka and Buka replied in unison, "Yes, he is our uncle." "In that case, you are also our kin," Hechchamanayaka said happily. However, Vidyaranya Swami said, "Yes, separating our own people from us with the ambition of expanding their empire and then sending them back to attack us, how do we understand this? Is this a twist of fate or something else? Even I cannot comprehend it," he said with a hint of sorrow. To this, Buka replied, "We lack proper leadership, Swami. What do you suggest we do? We can only follow the orders of whoever becomes king and commands us." Vidyaranya Swami then stood up and asked, "Why do you always wait for someone else to become king and give orders? When you have the capability, why can't you become the rulers yourselves?" Hakka expressed his doubt, saying, "But Swami, how can we, who belong to the Yadava community, take on the responsibilities of Kshatriyas?" Placing his hand on Hakka's shoulder, Vidyaranya Swami said, "Listen, my son, even Lord Krishna, who was born to establish dharma, belonged to the Yadava clan. Let go of this inferiority complex. Look around you. The sultanates in Delhi, Devgiri, Warangal, and Madurai are waiting like wolves to tear apart this Poisala kingdom. If they manage to conquer this kingdom, it is not just the kingdom that will be in danger, but our ancient dharma as well. The responsibility to protect our dharma now lies heavily on your shoulders. If you do not fulfill this duty now, there will be no one left to protect this kingdom and dharma. Dharma protects those who protect it. Now, Whether you choose to protect Dharma and be safeguarded, or become the first cause of its destruction, is up to you. I have said what I needed to say. The decision is now yours, and with these words, Vidyaranya Swami left. After hearing his words, Hakka and Bukka left the city, lost in thought. That night, during dinner, Hakka said to Bukka, "What Swamiji said is true. We know the suffering we endure by following a faith that isn't ours, forced upon us by Tughlaq. If the sultanates succeed in tearing apart the only remaining Hindu empire in South India, it won't just be the Hoysala kingdom that falls but also our Sanatana Dharma. If they win this kingdom, they will force conversion on everyone, just like they did to us. We must stop that from happening. To protect both this kingdom and our Dharma, there is only one way." "What is that, brother?" Bukka asked. "You will know tomorrow morning," replied Hakka, finishing his meal and heading to bed. Bukka, anxious about what his brother planned to do the next morning, could not sleep well that night. The next morning, Bukka woke up and went to the Tungabhadra river for a bath. By then, Hakka had already shaved his entire beard, bathed in the river, and was seen squeezing water from his long hair, neatly tying it into a knot. He was performing a water abhishekam, ritual offering, to a Shivalinga on the river bank. Seeing this, Bukka too got his head shaved, bathed in the river, and went to perform the ritual. After the worship was completed, Bukka noticed a calmness on Hakka's face and asked, "Brother, do you know how peaceful you look now?" Hakka, smiling softly, said, "This is the satisfaction that comes from ridding oneself of what isn't ours and embracing what is. We have much work to do. There is no time to rest. Arrange an urgent meeting with our commanders," and with that, Bukka set off to carry out his brother's command. The commanders, who came to hear what their leader had to say, were surprised to see the change in Hakka's appearance. As Hakka arrived, he introduced himself with his old name, Hakka, and said, "From now on, address me by this name. From today, I will follow the Sanatana Vedika Dharma I was born into. No one in my territory should be forced into any religion against their will. Everyone is free to follow their faith. From today, I am no one's slave. I declare my independence here, in Anegondi, and proclaim this city as my capital. I extend this freedom to the people of my region as well. No one here will be a slave to anyone anymore. If anyone tries to take away your freedom, I will personally stand against them. Only those who have the courage to walk with me may stay here. Those who wish to continue living as slaves out of fear can leave Anegundi," he said with passion, and as soon as he finished speaking, the entire area resounded with applause. Fearing the severe punishment that Tughlaq would impose on those who rebelled against him, some people left Anegundi and distanced themselves from Hakka. However, many soldiers stood by Hakka, saying, "We can no longer endure the mad rule of Tughlaq. We are exhausted by his crazy ideas. Whatever happens, we will stay with you. We will stand by you as long as we live and fight for freedom." Hakka was delighted to receive more support than he had anticipated from the soldiers. Hakka called his younger brother Bukka aside and instructed, "Bukka, Go straight to Orugallu and Anumakonda. Meet our acquaintances there and seek their support. Without question, Bukka set off toward Warangal. Meanwhile, Hakka went to meet the chief commander at Hampi. He informed the commander of his declaration of independence and asked for help in case Tughlaq attacked them. The commander promised his support if needed. Despite the language difference, Hakka and the commander were able to communicate well since Hakka, having followed Islam for several years, was fluent in Urdu, and having stayed in the Kempe region for a while, he could also speak Kannada. The similarity in their thoughts and beliefs brought them closer, and despite the age difference, they became good friends. Some soldiers returning from Kempe met with Muhammad bin Tughlaq and informed him that Hakka and Bukka had allied with the Hoysalas and were preparing to rebel against him. This news enraged Tughlaq. He could not understand why all his plans were failing, despite his intentions to do good for the kingdom. Every policy he tried to implement ended up failing in unexpected ways. The people even began calling him a mad king and mocked him. The continuous failures of his rule made him extremely frustrated. Tughlaq often vented his frustration on the people, which only made them despise him even more. This was now working in Hakka's favor. Even though Hakka had committed treason and left, the people of the kingdom supported him. Tughlaq wrote a letter to the Hoysala king, keeping all this in mind. Meanwhile, Bukka used his past connections in Anumakonda and Orugallu to turn the local military commanders to his side. Ballal Deva received the letter sent by Tughlaq. The letter demanded the return of the Turuska commanders who had betrayed him, threatening to destroy the Hoysala kingdom if they were not handed over. This enraged Ballal Deva as well, and he replied, "If your commanders have turned against you, it is up to you to either kill them or suppress their rebellion. We have no objection to that. But if you try to attack the Hoysala kingdom, we will not stand by and watch. If we give someone our word of protection, we will use all our strength to uphold it. However, if they are not within our protection, we will not interfere." He sent this letter back to Tughlaq. After reading the letter, Tughlaq realized that Ballal Deva had no objection to him suppressing the rebellion. He decided to crush the rebellion as quickly as possible and ordered an attack on Anegundi from the fort of Gautmapuri, which was under the control of his vassals. A large army from Gautmapuri was dispatched towards Anegundi. Learning this from Bukka, Hakka, realizing that the army he had assembled in Orugallu might be delayed in reaching him, set out with his forces in Anegundi to confront Tughlaq's advancing troops. The commander from Hampi also joined Hakka with some soldiers. The two armies met in a forested area, and a fierce battle ensued. During the battle, the commander from Hampi fought by Hakka's side, killing any enemy soldiers who tried to attack him. At one point, an enemy soldier attempted to kill the commander from behind. Seemingly out of nowhere, a 16-year-old boy appeared and engaged the enemy, ultimately killing him. Noticing this, the commander from Hampi stared intently at the young boy. The boy approached the commander and said, "In battle, one must be vigilant not only in front but also behind. The ones who stab you in the back are more dangerous than those who fight you head-on. Do you not know that?" With that, The boy ran off to face more enemies in another direction. Hakka, after witnessing everything that had just occurred, patted the shoulder of Hechchamanayaka, who was still staring at the young boy, and asked, "Who is that boy?" "He's the one telling you about the rules of warfare." Hechchamanayaka replied, "He's my son, Rudramanayaka." Surprised, Hakka asked, "Is that so? But you've never introduced him to me." Hechchamanayaka explained, "I didn't even know when he returned from the Gurukulam or when he joined the army. How could I introduce him to you?" Astonished, Hakka responded, "Is that so?" But before they could continue their conversation, more enemy soldiers began charging toward them, and they had to ring again in battle. The fight lasted for 2 days, with Hakka's army ultimately defeating Tughlaq's forces and taking control of the Gautmapuri fort. Hakka's soldiers celebrated their victory with great enthusiasm, but Hechchamanayaka was searching anxiously for his son amidst the celebrations. Noticing this, Hakka asked, "What are you looking for?" "My son, Rudramanayaka, is nowhere to be seen." "I'm searching for him," Hechchamanayaka replied. "Perhaps something happened to him in the battle. There's a tent nearby where the wounded are being treated. Let's go and check there," Hakka suggested, leading Hechchamanayaka to the tent. They searched the entire tent, but Rudramanayaka was nowhere to be found. Hechchamanayaka began to fear the worst, thinking his son might have been left behind on the battlefield. Yet, he reassured himself, thinking, nothing bad could have happened to him. "He's my son, he'll be fine." As they continued searching the tent, they eventually found Rudramanayaka tending to a wounded soldier's arm in one corner. Seeing his son, Hechchamanayaka finally felt at ease. Hechchamanayaka walked straight to his son's side. The wounded soldier, seeing Hechchamanayaka, tried to stand out of respect, but Hechchamanayaka gently pushed him back down, saying, "It's okay, take your rest." Rudramanayaka looked up at his father and said, "Please wait outside for a moment. This is the last wounded soldier. I'll finish treating him and come to you." Without a word, Hechchamanayaka silently stepped out of the tent and waited for his son. After a short while, Rudramanayaka came to his father and asked, "Tell me, father, how are you doing?" Hechchamanayaka grabbed his son by the ear and demanded, "When did you return from the Gurukulam? How did you join my army without my knowledge? What is all this about?" Rudramanayaka freed his ear from his father's grasp and explained, "It's not that I didn't want you to know, father. I completed my studies and returned from the Gurukulam, and on the very day I arrived in Hampi, you were preparing for war. With the help of our commander, I joined as a soldier and accompanied you. I've also studied medicine, which is why I'm helping treat the wounded here. One more thing, don't tell anyone that I'm your son, because they won't let me serve them out of respect for you." Hechchamanayaka pulled his son close, kissed him on the forehead, and said, "All right, my son." He then patted his head and started to walk away. As they walked, Hakka encountered them and asked, "Did you find your son?" "Yes, I did. He's doing well." "Let's go now," Hechchamanayaka replied as he pulled Hakka along with him. After gaining control of Gautmapuri, the surrounding minor kingdoms, all under the leadership of small feudal lords known as Paligas, fell under Hakka's influence. The people and the Paligas in these regions were fiercely independent, making it impossible to control them through threats. Therefore, Hakka granted them some autonomy, allowing them to make decisions independently regarding local governance. Hakka also started the construction of tanks to alleviate the drought that plagued the area, and he undertook the restoration of dilapidated temples. In just a short time, Hakka became well known among the people, earning their trust as someone willing to give his life for those he believed in. During his travels through the region, Hakka arrived in a village called Pattana. There, he visited a Durga temple near the village. Seeing a Salagrama idol of Narsimha Swami under a Khadri tree, and being a devotee of Vishnu, he moved the Durga idol to the side and installed the Lakshmi Narsimha Swami idol in its place, entrusting the temple's further development to a local leader named Chinnakka. Chinnakka's in-laws, being Virshevas, were unhappy with this decision, but they agreed out of fear of Hakka. However, Chinnakka still faced harassment from her in-laws. Despite these challenges, she began the temple's construction. During those times, relations between Shaivites and Vaishnavites were often strained. Hakka heard about how Thirumlamba had bravely defended the Gutibalu kingdom from the Turushka army and Koravi bandits. Impressed by her courage, he met her and congratulated her. Women, whether in governance or in facing enemies, are proving to be no less than men, perhaps inspired by the valor of the Kakatiya queen, Rudrama Devi. After touring the region, Hakka returned to Gautmapuri, where he learned something that deeply saddened him. A local chieftain had committed suicide out of fear that Hakka would turn the Shiva temple he had built in the Patan region into a Vaishnav temple, after hearing that the Durga idol had been moved aside to install the Lakshmi Narsimha Swami idol. This incident profoundly affected Hakka, leading him to change his outlook on Shaivism and Vaishnavism, deciding to see everyone equally. With these thoughts in mind, Hakka began his journey back to Anegundi. On the way, he decided to visit the Madkasira fort at the invitation of the local chieftain. As they travelled, night fell, so they set up tents and rested. The next morning, Hakka and Hechchamanayaka woke up and looked around. In front of them was a hill, and next to it a small village. The area was filled with thorny bushes. For some reason, Hakka felt like hunting in the area and told Hechchamanayaka about it. Smiling slightly, Hechchamanayaka looked around and said, "What animals would we hunt in these thorny bushes? But how can I say no to your wish? Let's do it then." Hakka, Hechchamanayaka, and a few soldiers began hunting in the area. All they could find were a few wild boars, peacocks, and rabbits. Even those were hard to catch as they kept escaping into the thorny bushes. Realizing this wasn't working, Hakka released some hunting dogs into the bushes. The dogs chased the animals they found, holding them until their master arrived or bringing them back to him. Around noon, one of the dogs spotted a rabbit and started chasing it, with Hakka running after them. The rabbit, terrified, ran towards the nearby hill. Hechchamanayaka, unable to keep up, returned to the tent and sat down. After a while, Hechchamanayaka also returned from hunting, sat down next to his father, and took a water pouch from him to drink. Just then, Hakka also returned, his face filled with astonishment as if he had seen something extraordinary. He stood there, frozen. Seeing this, Hechchamanayaka grabbed Hakka's hand, pulled him down to sit beside him, and asked, "What's the matter, Hakka? Why do you look like that? What happened?" Hakka, still in disbelief, said, "I was running after the dogs that were chasing the rabbit." The rabbit, in its terror, kept running until it reached the base of that hill. But as soon as it reached the hill, the rabbit suddenly turned back and started attacking the dogs with its front legs and teeth. The dogs, unable to withstand the rabbit's attack, turned and ran away, with the rabbit chasing after them. I can't understand how the rabbit, which was so scared until then, suddenly became so fierce when it reached the hill. There's some extraordinary power in this place. After I return to Anegundi, I plan to build a fort here, he told Hechchamanayaka before walking ahead. Hechchamanayaka, who was about to say something to Hakka, stopped when Hechchamanayaka signaled with his fingers to wait. After Hakka had gone, Hechchamanayaka asked, "Father, why does Hakka want to build a fort in this forested area? And the dogs might have run away not because of the rabbit but maybe because they saw a bigger animal. Is it necessary to build a fort in such a place based on such superstitions?" Hechchamanayaka replied, "Setting aside the rabbit story, a strong fort is necessary to properly govern this area. Hakka is about to start many projects to eliminate the drought in this region. To monitor these projects, a fort will be needed here. For some reason, I also like this place a lot. Besides, this hill is suitable for building a fort. Bushes, large rocks, and not even water to drink, why build a fort here? But rulers must see their plans through, right? By the way, what is the name of this hill?" asked Hechchamanayaka to his father. Hechchamanayaka, gazing at the hill, said, "This hill is called Penukonda." As he walked away, Hechchamanayaka glanced at the hill and casually shrugged, Penukonda, let's see what happens." Penukonda, however, stood tall and grand, as if silently proclaiming, "I will be the one to protect your kingdom in the future." The next day, Hechchamanayaka, Hakka, Hechchamanayaka, and the rest of the army set out for Madkasira. By evening, they reached Madkasira fort and stayed there for the night, before departing for Anegundi the following morning. As soon as Hakka and his army reached Anegundi, Bukkanna had made grand arrangements to welcome them. Ballala too, who had come there, praised Hakka's administrative skills, acknowledging that he had gone to war, understood the people's problems, and laid the foundation for resolving them. While everyone was in this joyous mood, a spy approached Ballala and whispered something in his ear, causing his expression to change. Hechchamanayaka noticed this and pulled the spy aside, away from the celebrations, to ask what was going on. The spy replied, "A war like no other is brewing in South India, sir." Angered by the assistance Hakka provided against the Tughlaq Sultan is leading a massive army from 3 different directions. From Bijapur, one army is marching towards Hampi. With the help of the Madurai Sultan Ghiyasuddin, another army is targeting Dwarsamudra, and from Warangal, a third army is preparing to attack Anegundi. The preparations are nearly complete, and in about 10 days, the Tughlaq armies will launch an offensive on our kingdom. This is the first time in the history of the Hoslas that we face the threat of having to defend three regions simultaneously. For some reason, I feel that victory might be difficult this time. As soon as the spy finished speaking, Hechchamanayaka's eyes reddened with anger. As long as I am alive, I will not allow any harm to the Hosla Empire. Go now, and if you get any more information, send it without delay. You may leave now, he said, dismissing the spy. Hechchamanayaka then took a deep breath, trying to contain his rage against the Tughlaq. Looking around at everyone enjoying the celebrations, he decided not to ruin their happiness by revealing this news. The following day, Hechchamanayaka organized a secret meeting in Ballaldeva's chamber with Hakka, Bukkanna, Rudramanayaka, and some other military commanders, where he disclosed the entire situation. Everyone fell silent upon hearing the news. After a while, Rudramanayaka broke the silence, saying, "Why should we give them the opportunity to attack us? Why not confront them before they get the chance?" Hakka agreed, "Yes, why should we give them that chance? We should confront them on the way." A military commander then voiced his concern, "But they are not coming from just one direction, they are attacking from three sides. The real problem is deciding whom to face first." Hechchamanayaka responded, "It's not about facing one before the other. We will split our army into three parts. One part, under Hakka's leadership, will confront the enemy coming from Warangal. Another part, led by Kempana, the protector of Dwar Samudra, will face the Madurai Sultan's forces. I will handle the Bijapur army with the remaining troops." Everyone agreed with this plan. Posted by Sri Krishna at 10 September 2024 to 49 p.m. Email this blog this, share to Twitter, share to Facebook, share to Pinterest. No comments? Post a comment.